Hello and welcome to the Happy Recap podcast, a special edition. We're recording this on July 24th of 2020. It's a beautiful thing. It's actual baseball actually happening. Opening day, my friend, about 3 months too late. EJ, good to have you with you. I'm JB. This is a opening day edition of the Happy Recap podcast. And, the fact is, it's just good to finally be here on opening day. Watching some actual baseball last night was good, although it was borderline baseball. But the reality of it is the Mets season begins today. The lineups are out. Things are moving towards the progress of the game, and we have a season that's lifted off in the era of a pandemic.
Yeah, it's great that we finally got here, JB. I didn't actually watch any of the games last night because for me, the first baseball that I wanted to see after not seeing baseball in such a long time is, in fact, Mets baseball. So I kind of followed along on Twitter, but I wasn't really watching any of it. But I'm psyched, man. I knew I was going to be psyched when this day got here, and I'm fully pumped up. Just to see that lineup get posted and see the beat guys jumping over each other to see who can get it posted to Twitter back. Talking about normalcy, there's some normalcy for you. So we got some baseball to play today. Obviously, there's some other things going on that we'll touch on real quick on this fun size edition of the show. And overall, I can't wait till 4:10 gets here and I'm plopped down on the couch with Will Recap, and we're just enjoying the Mets all over again.
Yeah, I've got my day rescheduled, kind of everything's moved around so that I can sit down and watch it. And without even knowing it, my wife scheduled a play date with some friends at homeschool. So they're nice and insulated, and they'll be gone. So the 55-inch TV is all mine, and be able to sit down and watch that ball game and uninterrupted and unencumbered. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. And with the lineup that I think looks pretty good, dude. I'm pretty happy with this lineup.
I'll tell you, it's funny. During the off season, as it looked like this thing was going to finally develop and we were going to play some baseball here this year, I've been having an ongoing back and forth with one of my good buddies, Sean, and he's been coming back to me with his suggestions for the lineup, and I've been going back to him with my suggestion for the lineup. And it turns out that the one I've been suggesting is the exact lineup that I've wanted all off season when it looked like Cespedes was in fact going to be back. I know that Louis was tinkering with having Alonso hit in the 2-hole during those couple of exhibition games. I was not a proponent of that. Neither were Gary, Keith, and Ron from their comments during the exhibition games. But overall, I got the exact lineup I want. I feel like Jeff McNeil is our best overall hitter. He's in the 2-hole. That's where you want that guy. You've got Alonso hitting third, so he'll still get that first inning at that. You've got Conforto hitting cleanup with Cess behind him. Cano's in the 6-hole. I think we're all breathing a sigh of relief about that because we were all wondering if Brody was going to kind of force the issue since Cano was his guy. If he was going to force the issue and have him higher in the lineup, he's not. Just Fingers, JD's hitting 7th. That's great. Then followed by Ramos and Rosario. And I love Rosario in the 9-hole because I do kind of see him as that second leadoff guy. This is the exact lineup I wanted. So great job by Louis. And let's see this lineup go out there and produce some runs. They're certainly capable of that.
It's one of the things, obviously, when you bring in somebody like Louis, who's kind of, certainly been known as a very analytics-friendly manager, having played that role as a coach as well with the team, kind of being that analytics bridge between the front office and the dugout. And you realize that, with a front office that's heading more towards the analytics day by day and a manager who's very in it, that it's reassuring to know too, that from an analytical standpoint, those of us who think maybe we know a little bit about it, I don't know that I do, but I certainly feel like I know enough to not put Alonso at number 2 and, not put Cano at number 3. It's nice to see that the computer seems to match the real world in this particular scenario. And I think, to me, that's always been the key of analytics, is find that juncture where the real world meets the computer. And that's kind of what I see on this lineup. From top to bottom, I like it. I'm happy with it. It is a solid opening day lineup. And of course, obviously you got DeGrom on the mound. So, I mean, you can't go wrong there. But I think when you're talking about tinkering with that lineup, especially with, it's hard to tell how good of a quote unquote summer camp a lot of these guys had, because the games not only didn't count, they just weren't recorded per se. Statistically speaking, there's no way of bringing up their spring training stats like you would in a normal year, other than looking at the box scores for the couple exhibition games they played last weekend. So I mean, but to me, a lot of these guys, including Pete, didn't look quite ready. And if they're not quite ready going into the season, you don't want to be tinkering with their pretty typical places in the lineup. You need them to be comfortable where they're at before you even think about moving anybody, hoping, of course, that they don't.
Right, and as we all know, there are no bigger creatures of habits than Major League Baseball players. So these guys have their spots where they're comfortable. Let's keep them in there for now. I agree. I'm not expecting these guys to come out here today and look in mid-season form, given such a truncated spring training or summer camp that they had. I know we're going to probably have some growing pains over the first couple of weeks of the season as these guys get more into baseball shape, as they start actually seeing live pitching that's not being thrown by their own teammates, and as they really start finding their rhythms again. I'm not expecting this offense to go out there right away and start scoring 7 runs a game in the first week, although I'd really be happy if they did.
No
But
one wouldn't be.
right, I have realistic expectations, and the good thing is it's going to be the same way for our opponents too. Everybody's in the same boat here. We're all going to have to knock some of that dust off of us and get themselves into shape. And I definitely see it's going to happen eventually. It just might take a little bit to get there.
Yeah, and I think that's I think you're looking at a week or two. I mean, obviously, they have the 60 game schedule, which has been referred to as the sprint, but really yesterday with the Major League Baseball and the Players Association, the dynamic of those 60 days took a fundamental shift as we went from a 10 team playoff system to a 16 essentially overnight. And while I'm a very much a traditionalist, and I mean, over the years, you and I are both traditionalists with this game. I'm not in favor of that necessarily. It's hard not to say, just like when the DH rule came in as a result of all this, that this isn't something that favors our Mets.
No, not in the least bit. And I mean, there's so much that I don't like about it. First and foremost, you basically throw the trade deadline out the window. Because if you have 16 teams that are going to make it into the playoffs, every
Nobody's
team
dumping.
probably,
Nobody's dumping.
especially when you're looking at, you're only going to have 30 games played at the point of the deadline. So nobody's going to be dumping players. There's not going to be a lot of additions probably made. If anything, you might see guys who are currently on other teams' 60-man rosters, but not on the 40-man roster, get snagged. But there's going to be no movement there. And I understand Major League Baseball is trying to appeal more to the youth, or trying to have more, let's call it drama. But the whole thing about the division winners get to pick who they want to play in the playoffs, and we're going to do it almost like an NHL lottery draft or a draft of some say, and they're going to do it on a live primetime special where the number one pick gets to pick their opponent. And all that's going to do is, okay, yeah, there will be some drama that night, but does any team in baseball want to give the team they're about to face in a playoff that type of locker room fodder that, hey, these guys said they want us, these guys think they can beat us? Well, let's go stick it up to them that they have no right to try to get a piece of us. So I just definitely think that it's not gonna serve a very good precedent to have teams picking their opponents. But overall, a 16-team playoff, I'm not a fan. I really did like the idea of a traditional playoff in a 60-game sprint. I think the 60-game sprint's fun. I think it's going to be a
Yeah.
lot of fun. If we make it all 60, I think it's going to be a blast as the teams are jockeying in position and up and down the standings every day. I mean, you could literally find yourself from first place to last place in a matter of days in this kind of season. So I think it will be fun. I'm just not a fan of the playoff format at all.
No, and I'm not either. Like I said, I do think it benefits the Mets. I mean, I think it definitely is one of those things that it all but assures them. I mean, not that anything actually ever assures anybody of anything, but it certainly adds a good amount. The Mets' playoff chances went up yesterday. I'll put it that way. But the reality of it is, yeah, the format and the other thing too is obviously, the old joke about government that every every temporary law finds its way to becoming permanent somehow if there are taxes involved. So it's kind of the same type thing with this. It's like these are things that, okay, now that they're in, how do you ever get rid of them? How do you go back to the previous system? I think it's safe to say the National League, the so-called universal DH, is here to stay, which again does seem to benefit the Mets, especially in the last few years of Cano's contract. But you go, okay, this is, if we have to deal with it, okay, fine, it's a 60-game season. But next year, if you're playing 162, or we still have some problems with lingering, COVID issues that maybe shorten the season to 100, 120, 140 games, still, and you have this playoff format, it just doesn't feel as necessary. It doesn't feel, it feels more contrived. And to me, it makes it harder to accept. I can go grin it, I can grit my teeth for 1 year, but the idea of it becoming permanent really disturbs me.
I think the one thing that we have working for us in that regard is the world is just not a place that we've ever known it to be before this year.
True.
So I think that hopefully we will all be able to look at each other next year and say, okay, guys, it was the year of COVID. We had to do things differently. Let's get back to more normalcy when it comes to the season. I do agree we could see a shortened season, but even with a shortened season, let's get back to normalcy when it comes to our playoffs. It might not happen next year. We have to wait to see what the CBA happens after next year. But really, that's going to be something that we have to find out what the players want. Tony Clark's going to have to play a big part in it. Major League Baseball is going to have to play a big part in it. And we're going to have to see what works. Because personally, I don't want these changes to be permanent either. But if it turns out to be a rousing success from a financial standpoint, if it's a rousing success from a competition standpoint, and if the players seem to take to it, then us as fans, I don't think are going to have much of a say in the matter.
No, absolutely not. And that's, that you mentioned the three-letter tricky wicket of this whole situation, and that 2021 is the final season in the current CBA. And from everything we have seen, especially these past month, we're trying to negotiate to get these guys back out on the field. This is not going to be one of those peaceful sit down for a week between the two parties, they walk out with a new agreement. This is going to be long. This is going to be drawn out. This is going to be nasty, and it's likely going to include some type of work stoppage coming up here in about 18 months. And you certainly look at a lot of the things, and yeah, they're going to look at things that work and things that don't, because even if they get 162 in next year, EJ, 2022 does not look good for 162 games today.
No, definitely not, especially if you look at the negotiations to get this season back underway. There were times where I would read a counterpoint and just can't do anything but roll your eyes. When they're bickering over 60 versus 70 games, like, guys, really? We're going to not play baseball over a matter of 10 games? When we're bickering over how much we're prorating salaries, it's like, guys, you a little tone deaf right now to what's happening in the world as far as people being unemployed and economics. So to see them bicker so much over what was a 60-game season, I can only imagine moving forward how it's going to be the negotiations for the 162. My number one goal, and this is a day of happiness because we're having opening day, but my number one goal for that collective bargaining agreement would not to see that work stoppage come to fruition. But I kind of think you're right. I kind of think there will be some, hopefully very brief work stoppage over the new CBA.
Well, and I hope that certainly we just one of the highlights for a lot of people during the break in action here over the past couple months has been the McGwire and Sosa documentary that ESPN did. There's a lot of talk about that, and it was one of those things that, of course, you remind yourself that the reason that was such a big deal was because baseball was still, even 3 years later, coming back from that strike in 94, 95, and how it had damaged the game, how it almost destroyed the game. And baseball was completely, on both sides, tone deaf to the damage they were doing to that game until they came back and couldn't figure out where'd everybody go. And I worry that they're still that tone deaf because this particular action, 95, yeah, okay, it's almost 20 years or 25 years in the rearview mirror now, but fans haven't forgotten. And the fans that haven't forgotten are the ones that were kids when this happened the first time. They're now bringing their kids. And if they give up, we lose 2 generations of fans here. I mean, my dad, who got me into baseball along with my mom, my dad walked away during that strike. He watched some playoff games since then. He'd sit down and watch them with me, but when he walked away, he walked away. And we're talking about someone who back in the day had a package at Shea.
Yeah, it's a thing that Major League Baseball they need to be aware of. That fans
they're
were
tone
not
deaf.
going to be so, and they're not going to be so quick to re-embrace it.
No.
Okay, let's say you have a strike, the fans bail again, and all of a sudden you have 2 guys going for home run records again. Is anyone not going to be cynical of that? I mean,
no, they're absolutely cynical, and rightfully so.
McGwire and Sosa, yeah, we all had it in the backs of our minds that, hey, these guys might be a little chemically enhanced, but you know what? Dingers. Let's root for dingers. But if that was happening again, I don't think anybody would care about a home run chase. Nobody cared when Bonds broke the record because we all knew he was juiced. And I think if you were going to stop and have a strike and have to rely on a home run chase to bring the fans back, I don't think it's happened in the 2000s.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the point, is that there's no, one, it would be impossible to replicate it under natural circumstances if there was nothing enhanced and nothing, anything going on there. But the reality of it is yeah, you have since then we've had the Mitchell report, we've had the various trainers that have come forward, we've had Balco, we've had all these things that have jaded us and made us more cynical, to the point where anytime anybody comes up and starts hitting home runs from the minor leagues, it's like, all right, are they juicing? So yeah, the environment is completely jaded and cynical. You can't have that happening again. And I'm sorry, even if you have Jacob deGrom and Garrett Cole 3 times during a season pitch no hitters on the same day, cross town or something like that, that's not going to bring the excitement that those dingers did. And don't get me wrong, I'm a pitching guy. I'm all for the no-hitter. I love a good pitching duel. I'm looking forward to seeing deGrom today more than that lineup, and I'm really looking forward to that lineup, I'll tell you. So that tells you I am a pitching guy, but there's nothing you can do on that mound on a consistent basis necessarily that's going to bring that excitement. So where's baseball going to come with it? They're not. They're going to lose those fans. They're not going to come back this time. They need to pay attention to what works right now. And I can tell you right now, they are doing things already that they are not doing things that they could. I've heard a few people, like, for example, MLB.TV and the blackout rules. Why are these closed to the public games? Why are they not making them as accessible as humanly possible through technology? Our good friend Maury Brown talks about that regularly. How are they missing this opportunity to lower the walls a little bit and let people see games that they couldn't normally? And that, to me, especially with people stuck home looking for things to watch, do I really want to watch that episode of the first 48 for the 5th time, or do I want to check out that ball game that's going on in my city? I've never really checked out baseball, but it's new. It's happening right now.
I have a feeling that over the course of the season, Major League Baseball will get a clue in that regard, and they will get rid of those blackouts at some point this season. You almost have to. Like you said, we're all starved for content right now. So hopefully they do the right thing in that regard. But for now, I guess we just have to rely on what we have regionally. And what I have regionally right now is SNY. And I'm going to enjoy the heck out of SNY today. As you said, I think I'm more pumped about deGrom getting in on the hill than I am about the players in that lineup. So I want to take it back to a positive tone here, JB, that in a couple hours we're going to see Jake deGrom take that hill and hopefully start mowing down some Braves.
I'm certainly, again, to me, that's, any time you could watch Jacob deGrom on the mound, I consider that more than anything, that to me is a privilege. That's an honor right there as a fan that I get to watch somebody like that work. That is like, and again, it sounds hyperbole, and I'm sure, Yankee fans will roll their eyes at with this, or any other fan of any team. But I truly feel when a Met fan, when I'm watching Jacob deGrom on the mound, I am watching one of the greats paint a masterpiece every damn time. And that's what's good. So much fun. That is what is so amazing. deGrom is, as far as I'm concerned, he is the best in the game today. And I think that, a couple more seasons under his belt, he is a Hall of Famer. And I think he has every right to be considered the favorite for the Cy Young Award for the third straight year. Obviously, flukes can happen. It's a weird season, but more than my confidence in the Mets, I have extreme confidence in Jacob deGrom to go out there and pitch amazingly each week. And so this is the perfect way to start a season for me.
Oh, I can't wait. Third batter of the game, Jake DeGrom versus Freddie Freeman. Let's get it on. It's good old-fashioned baseball. It's the Met killer versus the Met champion. It should be a lot of fun today once this game gets going.
Yeah, I'm super stoked about it. I'm super excited about it. I'm excited to talk a bit more about this series when we have our normal show that'll feed out on Sunday. And EJ, I think that we've kind of when the season was supposed to start, we didn't have a podcast. But now that the season's starting, we got ourselves a podcast. We got some stuff to talk about, and what I love the fact is, for the first time in 10 months, podcast or not, we've got real live games to talk about.
Yep, can't wait to get back on and send out the next episode when hopefully we have closer of a series in the books and we kind of get a better idea of where everybody's at from a baseball standpoint. But great to have it back, and just want everyone to hopefully enjoy this weekend because it's going to be a lot of fun, I hope.
Yep, and next podcast is scheduled to record on this weekend. Probably have 2 of the 3 games. Thanks to the folks at ESPN for hijacking Sunday's game and moving it to Sunday Night Baseball. Means we won't have all 3 of the games covered on the next podcast, but certainly look forward to talking about the 2. Talk about a few other things that we didn't get a touch on today. I definitely want to get your take, EJ, when we talk next on the contract that the Los Angeles Dodgers gave to Mookie Betts and how that will affect both the Mets and going forward baseball, especially with that CBA we talked about. So certainly some long-term and short-term impacts on the Mets with Betts signing for the next 13 years in Los Angeles. So 13 Years in Los Angeles, I believe, may be the name of a horror movie, but I could be wrong. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the games, and we'll have some early reaction to the games that we'll see today and tomorrow. But that is the beauty of the statement, EJ, with games today and tomorrow and beyond. I'm super stoked.
It's a good thing, my friend. It is a good thing. Now, hopefully we get a couple wins so we can already talk about the series win, even if we haven't seen Game 3 by that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping we can get a couple. It feels good to be at home. It'll be interesting to see what home field advantage looks like with no crowd. But I'd like to think our stand-ups are handsomer than the ones at down in Atlanta. So here's hoping we've got a better looking crowd or something. I have no idea. But any final thoughts, my friend?
You know what the final thought is, and we keep it PG here, so we'll go just with the traditional. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.